Rory was a U.S. Army Ranger serving in Afghanistan. He became a conscientious observer, which I'm sure he could explain more. But basically, essentially refusing to continue on serving in the war out of objection to the horrors he was seeing the U.S. military perpetrating on the people of Afghanistan under the guise of, hunting for Al Qaeda and spreading democracy, what have you. He actually walked across the United States for the Pat Tillman Foundation in 2008, 2009. If you don't know, Pat Tillman was an NFL player who left the NFL to go serve in Afghanistan. He was killed in Afghanistan, but there was a massive cover up and lie that he was killed by enemy fire, when in reality he was killed by friendly fire. And the cover up went all the way up to President George W. Bush. So Rory, who got to know Pat and his brother serving in Afghanistan, walked across the country for the Pat Tillman Foundation in 2008 and 2009 after his two deployments in Afghanistan with the 2nd Army Ranger Battalion. He is the author of Worth Fighting For, An Army Ranger's Journey Out of the Military and Across America, and co-author with Craig Hodges of Long Shot, The Triumphs and Struggles of an NBA Freedom Fighter. He regularly speaks at high schools and universities about his work, about his walk across the U.S. I wanted to start, we could start obviously with the collective media freakout, as well as, obviously really troubling scenes that we're seeing at the airport in Kabul and elsewhere. But I wanted to start first with you because you're like so many that after 9/11, got caught up in, the patriotic fervor at that point, the feeling, I guess, of feeling you had to do something. Can you just start out what originally made you want to serve in Afghanistan?
Yeah, sure. It was 2001. I just graduated from Notre Dame, had a ton of student debt to pay back, was looking for a little bit of adventure. Saw those planes hit the Twin Towers and said, I want to do my part to prevent another 9/11 from ever happening again. I was a little suspicious when the U.S. decided to enter Afghanistan as a full-blown military operation. But it was a reality. And if someone was going to go over there and fight, I wanted to be part of it. And, do my part in preventing something from 9/11 from ever happening again. And, hopefully spread a little freedom and democracy while I was over there. Before I knew it, I found myself landing in Kabul, where you saw those airplanes taking off with the people attached to them today. Just horrifying images. I was expecting bullets to be whizzing by my head when I landed. What I saw was kind of the opposite. It was very quiet. What I didn't know is the Taliban had essentially surrendered a few months prior to me getting there in early 2002. But that surrender wasn't good enough for politicians at home, generals who wanted, blood and revenge for 9/11. But I think more importantly to maintain Cold War era military budgets, $1 trillion a year type figures. And I think Afghanistan and that perpetual war was the way to do it.
And I wanted to drill in on that for a second, because there was this narrative that the Taliban just won't give up, that they're, a never-ending threat, and we have to remain there. But pretty much, not too long, less than a year after the war launched, they had surrendered, but the Bush administration kept us there. Everybody could have their opinions on why, but obviously Afghanistan had quite an opium trade. Like you said, the U.S. was interested in Afghanistan dating back all the way to I'm going to botch it, the Mujahideen, or I think I pronounced it right, and the Cold War fighting when bin Laden actually came up in Afghanistan fighting the Russians. So can you kind of talk about, basically this went on 20 years longer, but they had surrendered pretty much soon after the war started?
Yeah, after that initial invasion, when the Air Force went in and just bombed everything, Special Forces had some operations. The Taliban said, "Okay, this is it. We have a few modest conditions," and it was rejected. And this is the nature of imperialism. There's always going to be that resource that needs to be controlled outside of U.S. markets. Maintaining spheres of influence in parts of the world where the U.S. feels like it could have more influence. And it's just I think you can get into the weeds on the whys and what happened, but I think this habitual need to create new markets and kind of funnel money away from poor and working class people and into the hands of a very small percentage of the population. I think that's really what it came down to. And when I landed in the country, I felt like a bully. This was history's most powerful military. We had our night vision. We could do anything we wanted in these countrysides. We'd have rockets land in our camp and we'd call in an airstrike, not into any specific one area, but that general vicinity over there. Estimates are as many as 80 to 85% of everyone who's been killed in Afghanistan have been innocent civilians. People who couldn't point to Manhattan on a map suddenly had a vested interest in knowing everything it could about the United States and its military. And I think that explains a lot of the rise of the Taliban, is that so many innocent people were pissed off that the United States went in and started killing their family for reasons that they couldn't understand or fathom. And so, yeah.
I wanted to also, point out, I don't know how much of this you learned later, but if the pretense for going into Afghanistan was taking out bin Laden, the Taliban, or Al Qaeda, well, the hijackers on 9/11 were from Saudi Arabia. And you mentioned profit. Well, we've had a longstanding financial partnership with Saudi Arabia. But can you kind of talk about, bin Laden might have been in Afghanistan at one point, but the actual 9/11, the execution of it and a lot of the funding of it did not come from Afghanistan.
Yeah, sure. It's one of the poorest countries on the planet. And it's even questionable whether bin Laden planned it from Afghanistan. Was it Pakistan or not? He spent most of his time, certainly after 9/11, in Pakistan, not Afghanistan.
Right.
So, yeah, it was botched mission from the very beginning, and there was a very little understanding of the culture. I don't think there was any kind of desire. We found ourselves, no more than pawns in village disputes most of the time. We'd go in, land in someone's front yard, throw a bag over their head, take them off to a place like Guantanamo or the like, and find out not long after that guy didn't pay his landlord. And his landlord, who also was looking for money in one of the, like I said, one of the poorest countries on the planet, give me a few $1,000s and I'll tell you a member of the Taliban. And he points to his tenant, who didn't, and that wasn't like a one-off thing. This was a regular occurrence.
Right.
And
I actually want to read. Jacobin did a great piece on you, and I'm just going to read from it. Later, while cooking dinner for his family at his house in a Chicago suburb, Fanning recounts a common excursion for his unit. They'd land a helicopter in someone's front yard, enter a home to the sound of screaming children, and kidnap someone on what Fanning later realized was usually worthless intelligence in quotation marks. I never put a bag over someone's head, but I watched the Navy SEAL do it, and I helped handcuff and carry the guy. You have no idea who the guy is. He's breathing heavily, and you're watching the green bag it's like a sandbag abrasive going in and out and wondering what's going on in his brain. You just stare at this guy as we fly off into the night, and he's pants as if suffocating. He has no idea if he's going to be interrogated or killed or what. And then we go back to bed. And I think this kind of goes back. I mean, first off, that's just alarming. But I think this kind of goes back to what you were mentioning. I mean, it's not PC to say this on CNN, but I don't know. If that was happening to me and my family and my neighbors and my community, I might want to fight the country doing it. I'm not defending terrorism, but the U.S., it seems to just make a good guys, bad guys paradigm without ever realizing, like, why do these people want to fight us? Why do they hate us? Could it be that we're perpetually invading their countries?
Yeah, I mean, I signed up to make the world a safer place. I think an interesting statistic that really kind of gets to the heart of this: between 1980 and 2001, there were 200 suicide bombs around the world. Between 2001 and 2012, there were over 2,500 suicide bombs around the world, 90% aimed at the U.S. or U.S. interests. But between 1980 and 2001, only 10% were aimed at the U.S. and U.S. interests. The world became a much more dangerous place after the U.S. brazenly walked into Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, all these places, and killed innocent civilians. And so, yeah, I mean, you have to look at this in context, and that's certainly something Biden did not do in that speech today. He didn't go through all the innocent people that lost their lives because the United States wanted to maintain Cold War era military budgets, or whatever the reason we're in these countries. The world is a much more dangerous place because of these endless wars. So yeah.